Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about the new movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. This movie is directed by Peyton Reed, who did both of the previous Ant-Man movies, which I always love when they bring back the same director. I'm looking at you, 007 franchise. Ant-Man and the Wasp have typically been seen as side characters, and admittedly they're not my favorite characters in the Marvel Universe, but I was interested in the implications this movie would have for the MCU moving forward, so I decided to check it out. The synopsis is as follows. Ant-Man and the Wasp find themselves exploring the quantum realm, interacting with strange new creatures and embarking on an adventure that pushes them beyond the limits of what they thought was possible. So without further ado, let's get into the 6 things that make a movie great. 1. The plot. After the events of Endgame, Scott Lang kind of finds himself just living this normal everyday life while everyone still sees him as an Avenger. When he finds out that some of his family have actually built this sonar satellite to the quantum realm. Scott and Janet find out about it, and while Scott thinks it's cool, Janet starts panicking, and suddenly all of their family are sucked into the quantum realm. Basically, they get down there, find out that there's a whole civilization down there, and while trying to escape, decide to help liberate them from the person who's taken over. Janet obviously knows the most about the quantum realm as she spent the most time trapped down there, so they have to rely on her to survive and overcome. I'd be completely honest with you, I thought that this movie was boring. You're dealing with an outside atmosphere with outside problems, and an implication at the end that has to do with the MCU. It just didn't have that much impact to me. Look, we've seen Scott grow and shrink, and I guess I wanted to see something new and cool about his abilities incorporated into the plot of the story. There was nothing. I got really bored, and I honestly found myself almost dozing off. I didn't like the way that the story played out, and the ending was super anticlimactic. So unfortunately for me, plot gets a thumbs down. 2 is family friendliness. Quantumania is rated PG-13, and I definitely think they stay within those boundaries. There's quite a bit of action, there's some violence, there's a mild to moderate bit of profanity, including taking the Lord's name in vain a couple times, a couple sensual comments, and because it's Disney, there's some anti-cop subliminal messaging. Did it have anything to do with the story? No. Could they have done literally anything else and had the same effect? Yeah. It's very brief but very annoying and unnecessary. But all in all, this movie doesn't go over the edge on anything, so use your discretion, but for me, family friendliness gets a thumbs up. 3 is acting and script. Most of the acting performances in this movie were decent, I guess. You have a lot of returning cast, but not everyone that I would have liked to see. They replaced the actress playing Cassandra Lang and went from Emma Furman to Catherine Newton, and honestly I gotta say that I didn't really like the change. After seeing Endgame, I wanted to see what Furman had to offer as the daughter of Ant-Man, and Newton's performance didn't really impress me. In fact, nobody's did. It was kind of full of these subpar and dull performances, unfortunately including Jonathan Majors. I like Majors as an actor, and I could understand everything he was saying in this movie, which is an improvement because in past movies he tends to mumble quite a bit, but his performance was rather underwhelming, and I don't think that's necessarily all his fault. I think it's the way that this movie was written. The script of this movie was pretty poor, honestly. It was full of uninspired lines, a lot of moments that tried to be funny but weren't. I found myself chuckling like twice, but that's it. And I never thought I would see the day where a Bill Murray cameo was absolutely not funny, but it happened. And I'm mad. Not to mention the fact that even though Janet's character is the one that knows the most about the quantum realm, they decide to not have her share anything with anyone until like a third of the way through the movie. I don't know if they thought it would build suspense and have everyone on the edges of their seat, but it absolutely didn't do that. And Evangeline Lilly is great, but I'm sorry with both her and Shuri, the whole wrist blaster, just looks really bad on screen. And there was a lot of that in this movie. I don't know that it's overacting, but they definitely need to clean that up. For me, acting and script get a thumbs down. 4 is character development. Pretty much all I have to say here is, again, there's a difference between character development and character progression. We find out some backstory about Janet, but it's not really that incredible. And we get some mild development with Kang, but they honestly don't do a bunch with him in this movie, and that was one of the most disappointing parts. I was under the impression that this movie was going to introduce the MCU's next big bad. And by introduce, I mean actually do something with him because we were introduced to him in Loki. But they did nothing. It was boring. It was dull. They suck. I also thought this movie was a great opportunity to give Cassandra Lang some character development. No. It really seemed like this movie just dropped the ball quite a bit on areas that they should have hit out of the park. So for me, character development gets a thumbs down. 5 is visuals and CGI. The visuals in this movie were fine. The CG was fine. Like I said, there just wasn't anything that really impressed me. We've seen a lot of this stuff before, and usually the MCU incorporates something new and incredible, something to wow us, but there was nothing here that did that. I don't feel like they messed up, I just kind of feel a little disappointed. There is one character that's introduced that spills a little bit into Uncanny Valley, but his character's supposed to be really funny and it wasn't, and it's sad, but the CGI was good. So visuals and CGI get a thumbs up. And 6 is rewatchability. Quantumania is 2 hours and 5 minutes long, and like I mentioned earlier, it was a bit boring to me and it felt pretty long. Especially when you get to the end of the film and you look back at everything they did or didn't do, and you're like, I just spent 2 hours of my life watching that? I feel like they could have done more. I kind of just spent the time wondering if they were ever going to do anything that was worth watching or that would implicate new things in the MCU. And unfortunately, the only time that happened was in the 2 post-credit sequences. I've never been a huge fan of the Ant-Man movies, but this one was probably the least entertaining out of all of them. So for me, rewatchability gets a thumbs down. With all these areas considered, I have to give Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania a 4.5 out of 10. This movie had bland acting performances, the plot was pretty dull, it seemed pretty uninspired and unengaging, there was nothing new that left us awestruck or interested, and it had a script that was pretty poor and unfunny. I think one of the defining traits of the Ant-Man franchise is that it tends to be more humorous, but that just wasn't there for me. So with that being said, even if you're excited about Marvel movies, I don't think that you need to go see this one in theaters. Just wait for it to come out on Disney Plus in a couple months. Thank you so much for watching. If you've seen Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. As always, I appreciate your love and support, and I'll catch you guys and gals in the next one.